Well, Heather, it's good to be back with you again.
Absolutely. It's a dreary day here in Connecticut today. How about
Well,
you, Joe?
perfect weather, 70 degrees, kind of, a little bit of clouds just to make the sky look pretty. So we'll enjoy that today. You guys
Yeah.
hang on, spring is coming. All right,
Uh, we-
today we're going to focus on the current events that we're seeing happening in the space. We've got our TV and movie quote of the week, where we will extract wisdom from the things that we're watching, or at least try to. An excellent thing that both of us learned this week. We're going to try to stump each other with two truths and a lie. And we have Lamont here, one of our coaches, who's going to give us our member spotlight. We're going to wrap up with the favorite article of the week. That would be Heather's favorite article of the week. All right. And a little game we've begun playing where right before we start the episode, I either give Heather a word or she gives me a word, and we have to organically, seamlessly work it into the podcast episode without it otherwise being noticed by you. So, all right, let's see if that works. Uh, um, let's go. Today, current events. What's happening, Heather?
so Xero announced late last week, early this week that they have a partnership now with Anthropic. So they are embedding Claude into Xero to help offer new AI powered features. So really cool stuff. It's going to help customers to handle work across their accounting workflows, payroll, and payments. And Jax just asked Xero, which they unveiled a couple years ago at XeroCon, is going to help people get more insights into the revenue and profit performance of their company. So that's like one portion of this new partnership that they have. The second piece of the partnership with Xero is you're going to be able to connect Xero to the Claude environment and actually get data out of your Xero account within Claude, which is going to be really cool because as I'm learning, because I'm just starting to kind of dip my toe into Claude, is that there's a lot of vibe coding opportunities with AI in Claude, and I'll be talking about that a little bit later and the excellent thing that I learned. So
Yeah, all right. Well, we'll save it for that because you're going to talk about their artifacts and all sorts of really cool things.
that's
They have
right.
a co-work feature in beta right now that we can go, banter back and forth about. But Anthropic has just come so far in the last 4 weeks. As a
They
matter of
really
fact,
have.
we can go ahead and say this now because it's kind of a current event. We mentioned it on a previous episode. When Anthropic released this version, major release of Anthropic about 4 or 5 weeks ago, it created what they were calling the SaaS apocalypse. The traditional cloud developers looked at the way it could code, and the
Hmm.
market responded by saying, maybe SaaS is not our future. Maybe something more like Anthropic is. So that got your attention, folks. Now the market has since rebounded from that. I think it overcorrected, but it was that jarring, that
Yeah,
shocking how powerful Anthropic has become. And mine's also about AI. Go figure. It kind of dominates the headlines.
it really
But
does.
Microsoft released a report titled 2025, the year the frontier firm was born. Now, they release this report every year as a research project about the previous year. And then they title it something that kind of synopsizes what that year was about. And this year, they say that 2025 was the year of the frontier firm. I mean, the core argument of the article is that we've hit the breaking point with artificial intelligence, not the singularity. That would be general artificial intelligence, but a breaking point, a tipping point where businesses need more output, but the workers are maxed out in most professional service industries. And their thesis is because of that intersection, the evolution of AI and staffing shortages, also just any business wanting to do cost controls. Their thesis is that AI agents, not just assistants, not just chatbots, but agents that actually do work, are going to be increasingly the hires of the future. And I'm using hires in air quotes, right? 71% of these frontier firms say their company is thriving now after having deployed agents, if they've deployed agents, right? So, of those who did that deployment, that was the survey, and 39% globally. The most interesting concept here is the idea of the agent boss, that in the future you're going to have AI, or even in the present, you're going to have AI team members and human team members who will, for at least the foreseeable future, have a human team leader. And don't know that will change, anytime in the near future. But teams will start to, there's actually a ratio that Microsoft has encouraged everybody reading the report to begin measuring as a key metric in your business. And that's a ratio of human to AI workers on each of your company's teams. So
Interesting.
we are getting to that point where the world's feeling stranger and stranger. And this is my time to say, if all of that intrigued you, then, join us and Microsoft, who's now jumped into Scaling New Heights, and it will be co-producing an entire track dedicated to artificial intelligence and providing a keynote. Join us for the Strange New World themed conference coming up in June at scalingnewheights.com. This is one not to miss if you feel like you're missing out or behind on the AI journey. We'll get you caught up.
It's just, Joe, it's just moving so fast. I shared a couple of podcasts ago, probably a couple months ago, that an article by Harvard Business Review that was really interesting, that was talking about the new role of AI and how they have AI managers. So you have the manager, and rather than managing a human team, they actually manage a group of agents, right? So it's their job to oversee the work that these agents are doing and actually correct the model when they see things going awry. So they were in that article, they were talking about, Walmart, Amazon, these large enterprise companies, the big box companies, right, are already hiring for this position. So it was a really great article, and I'll surface it again for our listeners if you want to check that out. I really do think that's a glimpse into the future.
Yeah. And it's about task displacement more than it is role replacement.
Right.
And we've mentioned this even before, but there was a member of your team, in this case, it was an entire role. There's a member of your team that used to do all the initial copyright drafting and research being a big piece of that. That role's been displaced by now agents.
It
So
has.
there's an agent on your team and you're the agent boss. It's already happening in our company. And of course, if you're listening here for the first time hearing that, we very much write our own material. We edit our own material. But that initial drafting and research, we don't need to pay a salary for anymore.
Yeah,
So,
we actually have two with the Woodard Report. We have two review cycles, human review cycles. So
yes.
we do all our editing. A human does that, and then there's a final review by a human.
Final review cycle, yes. And it's some
super important
rewrites,
right
but that
now.
initial draft is that
Exactly.
copywriter role. And that's
Exactly.
an agent in our company.
Absolutely.
Okay, so it's time now for the TV movie quote of the week. All right, Heather, what are you watching out there?
So one of my favorite shows, I think of all time, probably in my top 10, maybe even in my top 5, is The Good Place. So it's got Ted Danson in it. It's got Kristen, I can't remember her last name. People are probably going to, Kristen Bell. Yeah, Kristen Bell.
It's Kristen Bell.
A little mouse on my shoulder told me that. But Kristen Bell, amazing show. If you haven't seen it, there's 3 seasons. And my quote comes from the 3rd season, where they're trying to unravel where things went wrong in the process that gets souls into heaven or the good place. And so what they've been trying to figure out is why no one's getting in anymore. And they're saying, okay, well, it's because our process isn't right. So the quote is, every day the world gets a little more complicated and being a good person gets a little harder. And that's said by Michael, who is kind of the overseer angel or dark angel of the good place. So really what we're talking about here, and I loved this quote, when I started to dig into it, because the point of it was that they thought that people were getting worse and that basically humans were just not capable of being good anymore and actually making it into heaven. And so this whole episode focused on the fact that it wasn't the humans that were getting worse. It was that the world was changing and the types of things that humans were having to deal with were getting more complicated. Right.
Very interesting and complex premise there.
It is. And so what they realized was they had to change their process of gauging what was good. And an example that they had, which was really cool, was that back in 1534, there was a man who picked roses in his garden and walked them to his grandmother, right? And he got points for that because it's a point system to get into the good place. But in 2009, another man picked up the phone and ordered the exact same dozen roses for his grandmother, but had points deducted, right? And the premise is that all of the carbon,
Oh,
all of
yes.
the carbon impact on the earth of ordering those flowers by calling and then having a car go pick up the roses and all the things that actually made them deduct points. And so what they realized was the system didn't work anymore for today's complexity. And I think this is a really great business case of things change, like AI. If you're still doing it the same way, you're not adapting to what changes within the environment.
What
So I
came to
think
my mind is the way that we evaluate team performance in virtual versus premise.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah,
another place where the rules have changed and the evaluation criteria has changed.
exactly.
Yeah, so there are a lot of implications to that. It's a very complex concept there.
Yeah.
It'll give me room for thought.
Great
I'm
show.
watching The Pit. I rewatched all of season one, which is this show. I can't say enough about it. But what I love about it is not just the drama or the fact that it's good to see Noah Wiley back in the scrubs. It's that it's really a treatise on leadership in a profession, and he exemplifies leadership, including being intensely human, making mistakes, over under reacting, getting a little bit irritable. So it's very real. He's not the perfect leader, but he's a powerful leader. So if you don't watch it for any other reason than that, you can always turn your eyes like I do if it gets too gross. But they're in season two. They're standing in the ambulance bay, getting a breath of fresh air, or rather, Noah Wiley is the attending, and the hotel administrator approaches, and his name is Dr. Robbie. She says to him, "I'd hoped you would have reviewed my ideas for the department. Let's take generative AI, for example. She's interesting fact, by the way. ER doctors spend 48% of their time charting and only 28% of their time treating patients." But before she can finish, an ambulance pulls up with this college kid who's been tasered by college security. He's hysterical. He's screaming. He's
Mm.
cussing. He's flailing around. Get these things out of me. Get these things out of me. And Dr. Robbie turns to the hotel administrator and says, "You want to tell me more about those ideas?" So it's an interesting juxtaposition between, yes, AI has goodness, but AI could not help that college kid at that moment. That was an impossibility. And even if we project ourselves into the future, which Dr. Susskind's going to do with all of his research, he's going to come on Sunday night of our conference. He's going to tell us about the future, and he's been right since the year 2015 with his research when he wrote the book, The Future of the Professions. But even if you were to take his projections and you were to bring them into the future, the 2030s, early 2030s, when robots begin to intersect more and more what's happening with AI and displacing the physicality of our world, which is the kind of one of the humans in the loop, they have to actually get off the service truck and fix the HVAC or fix the plumbing or fix the water line. Increasingly, that will be done by robots, even household robots, things like that. Okay, so just understand that that's an imminent future. Let's imagine that a robot could have pulled up and taken the kid out of the ambulance, brought the kid in. What if a human robot could, even with AI, have pulled the things out of the kid?
Mhm.
Could it have handled the hysteria? Could it have calmed the kid down? Could it have assessed the situation that was going on that created the problem and dealt with the tensions of the fact that the injured security guard pulled up right behind them and they were by each other on the beds and had to be separated in triage because of all the anger intensity of the moment? The intensely human pieces of any profession will remain the human in the loop. And they were making that point very clearly. That wasn't
Mm. Mm.
accidental. They
Yeah.
were making that point in this episode.
Interesting. It's interesting, Joe, because I hear that all the time about, that AI won't be able to replace the empathy that we have as humans. What
Mhm.
AI will never replace is the connection we have as humans, but
That's
it can
correct.
absolutely replace, or it can mimic really, really, really
Mimic.
well, the empathy. And so it feels real. And now that you have the voice, they have different voices you can choose from when you're working with your AI, your of choice, right? And so it really does sound very, very much like a human. And I think that there's a huge danger to that because we are
There's a massive
already,
danger to it. In fact,
yeah,
Gen Z is increasingly turning to GPTs as
yes,
therapists, and they're claiming that they're getting psychological and emotional breakthroughs that are better than years of working with an actual professional. But the professionals, that community, the licensed therapists, they are decrying that. They're saying, please don't. It's extremely
no, right.
damaging.
It is
And
dangerous.
Chat GPT itself came out. OpenAI came out with a statement that said, please don't use our technology as a therapist. Yet that's what they're turning to and claiming that it's helping them. Well, it probably isn't. You have those fringe examples of where Chat GPT led people to violence. They led people to kill
Yes,
themselves. There are things that it cannot do, and there are things that it ought not do. And when the
correct.
cannot and the ought not intersect, it's pretty dangerous.
It is dangerous. It is. Yeah, it agreed. And I think that we definitely need regulation. I mean, I know that's an unpopular opinion, Joe, but I think that it's really important that we get something in place soon.
Yes,
Um,
especially with children. I mean, you got
absolutely.
to start there.
Yeah,
Yeah, just like
especially
they're
with
doing with
children.
social media right now. As we learn that this thing
Exactly.
can actually cause kids to kill themselves or harm others, their
Exactly.
minds are not fully formed, their frontal cortex is not fully developed. They're much more susceptible to the manipulations of AI,
Yes.
just like they are to the manipulations of the people that develop social platforms. So start
And
with them and then figure out what we're going to do with the grown-ups.
and it's important to understand because in a business sense and for the accounting profession, Joe, one of the things that's really important is our clients are using this. And if they're not the experts, we are. And so we know that there's still hallucination when you're using a GPT, right? And they
Mhm.
can't do certain things really well. If they're asking advice about their business and relying on it, it can definitely lead them astray. If they're asking about a tax question, they don't know how to vet that to make sure that
Yes,
that's
you have to have that human in the
actual
loop to review. And this came up
100%.
just on a social media exchange with Logan Graff just this week, where somebody claimed, "Hey, I ran my tax return through Claude, and it found $600. Found an error. It said
Mhm.
$600 that my CPA missed." And then it wasn't a professional who said it, but Logan came in and said, "And how do you know that the CPA was the wrong one?" And they couldn't answer that.
No,
So, because they're not a tax preparer, right? And
exactly.
that was exactly the question that that person needed to be asked.
Right.
You know, but the problem is not if it's accurate. The problem is, do people think it's accurate? And whether you're a professional therapist or whether you're a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant, a bookkeeper, it's the think that it's accurate part that is scary. And we have to over educate. Yes, regulate, but over educate. I mean, ultimately, we won the battle against smoking addiction through a combination of regulation, but
Mhm.
most of that and education, and most of that regulation was that the populace had to be educated, the proper warning messages,
Exactly right.
who you can actually market to. The product didn't change, just how we communicate about the product and to whom we communicate the
We'll be
product.
educated on that. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
and that's a great place to start with AI and social media, as
For
well. So we
sure.
could go on about that forever, but let's talk about the excellent thing we learned this week. All right, Heather, what'd you learn this week?
Okay, so as I mentioned at the very beginning of our podcast today, Joe, I am starting to dip my toe into Claude. So I used Claude a couple of years ago when we were looking at Claude or ChatGPT here at Woodard, and I chose ChatGPT, and we've built a whole bunch of stuff around it. Well, Claude is been for me anyway, not for others, but for me was a kind of a sleeper, and I'm starting to dip my toe into it, and it's amazing. So the excellent thing that I learned that Claude can build apps simply by telling it what you need. So this coding is literally all I had to do was tell Claude the type of app that I wanted. It built it, and then it stores it in a place called artifacts. So you can create these artifacts, and it will create these little it can create a website page. It can create, and so the app that I created was I wanted to build a database of call for speakers in the accounting profession. So I
Mm.
told it exactly in about 2 sentence prompt what I wanted, and it built the whole thing. Now we were able to iterate on it, and it continued to add complexity to it, which is really, really
Yes.
cool. Now the thing is, for the artifact, I have to access that from within Claude. But the other cool thing is that you can add all of these apps that you normally use. Like, say you use Microsoft or Box. I'm not a Box fan myself, but with Microsoft, I like SharePoint, and so you can connect that, or
It can read it can read all
OneDrive.
these, we use Monday, we use HubSpot.
Yeah,
You can connect it into all these systems, and then you can say, given such and such is happening with my customers, given whatever, the status is of this project, build this app, and then it will talk to those things.
it
Um,
will. Yeah, no, it's really cool. So whatever tool you use, whether it's Box, Dropbox, Google Drive, you can connect these and access the information in there as you're building out workflows, and then you can create agents, which is really cool. And they make that. I think the thing that blew me away about it, Joe, is they make it so easy. It's
yes,
just like
it's
it's
just
like
conversational.
ordering. Yeah, it's like ordering a Happy Meal at McDonald's. You just tell it how you want it, or maybe that's not a good example.
Well,
Maybe it's
a
ordering a
great
sandwich at a
example
sandwich
would
shop.
be, we used to engage programmers. We used to have contracted programmers who used to build bridge solutions for us to use in our company, sometimes to use with our clients. And it would cost me thousands of dollars, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars as a cost
Mhm.
line on our projects. And I would give them the specs verbally. I need the product to do this. I need the product to do that. It needs to have a drop down menu. It needs to have its menu on the side. It needs to have the following screens. The screens need to be built this way. You need to have these, these, and you don't even have to use terms with Claude. You don't have to say parent table, child table. You can just say it should have these fields on it, should have these drop downs. Just talk normally like you would to a programmer who's asking you to
Exactly.
explain what you need, and then it builds it. And then you can look at it and you can say, well, I don't like where that menu's placed. Can you move it someplace else? Can you change that drop down? Can you add an add new option on the drop down? And it just, every time you tell it, it just sticks the
It
stuff
just
out there.
updates it.
It's
It's like having it
phenomenal.
is like having a coder sitting right next to you.
Yes,
I love Zapier, and Zapier has AI in it now. So you can actually tell Zapier what type of Zap you want to
it does
build.
the same thing.
It does the same thing. There's a lot of new features that I'm really excited to dip into. So I think there's an intersection here of Anthropic, Claude and Zapier, and you've got this whole new AI layer on it that just blows my mind. Really, really love it.
And remember, it's agentic, meaning it can do things, not just tell you things. So when
Right.
Xero's, for example, now integrated with Anthropic, and this is just a press release, so we haven't seen the actual integration yet, but I know from the way it behaves with other solutions, it's read write. So imagine that I have a closing statement for one of my holding companies that owns properties, right? Well, I can scan that in, I can feed it to Anthropic, and I can say, I need to record this closing statement, including the asset and all of its ancillary closing costs, legal costs, any, paying off any other kinds of loans that might be referenced here. And it will interpret the document. It will read the chart of accounts. It will have a conversation with you about it. Is this the other liability that you paid off? It looks like it matches what's in the closing statement. Is this the one that I need to make sure I clear out? It will give you depreciation schedules and timetables. And then once the conversation's over, it'll give you the exact entry that it thinks you should enter. And then all you have to do is say, yep, that one looks good to me. Put it
Enter
in
it in.
Xero, and it will just record the entry, which would
Yeah.
be like a business owner having a conversation with an extremely savvy in-house controller on their finance team, or a conversation with their CPA. And
Right.
that's where we want to bring back that human in the loop, because it'd be a really good idea at that point to send the sample journal entry and the closing statement to your accountant and say, what do you think about this? So that way they have that review cycle. But where it might have taken that firm an hour to write up the process, it may only take them a couple of minutes to verify that it's accurate before you push that button.
Yeah, what I would say, for folks that are looking to use Claude, it's awesome. It's really awesome, but it does make mistakes, and it will be upfront with you about that. So
Mhm.
as I've worked with it,
When it
actually,
knows that it's made the mistake.
it's knowing that it knows it, or it says, "Don't rely on this because I'm not
Yeah,
sure,"
yeah, but that's the
which is really
disclaimer for
cool.
all of them, right?
Yeah,
So you
yeah.
yeah, so that's why that human in the loop is so important. And
Hmm.
that plays perfectly into the thing I've learned. So I'm rereading Dr. Susskind's book, World Without Work. And again, can't say it enough. He's coming all the way from England, Oxford professor, economist, world renowned, to tell us what he's predicting for the future. So don't miss Scaling New Heights coming up in June to see Dr. Susskind personally. And in this book, A World Without Work, which I'm hoping is a hyperbolic title, we talk about the routine tasks, and everybody says that. I think we pretty much understand now if a task is routine and it's procedural and it has defined steps with some or limited variance, that we know AI is going to be doing that. So the human in the loop is to review and complete, to complete what isn't routine. But he makes an interesting point in the book, and it's true. It isn't just tasks that are repetitive and cyclical and procedural that are replaced by AI. Not anymore. Even when he wrote the book 2 or 3 years ago, several years ago, it is much more true now. If the human, let's get this, listeners, if the human can tell you how they deduced or reasoned through the process, then that task is also displaced by AI now. So if I have something that's an aberration, something on a bank rec that the rule doesn't work and it spits it out and I have to think about it, as long as the AI has the same access to the same data and systems that I do. Like you mentioned, Heather, I might have to go look at some source documents wherever I'm storing
Hmm.
my files. I may need to go look in the CRM and see what the exchange was between the two parties. As long as I can get to the data, the AI can create the same thought process or mimic the thought process of the human to deduce what should have happened or how it should be coded, all the way down to making a reasoned judgment call, understanding what gap is because it
Hmm.
knows gap. The Then you just have the human in the loop to review.
That's
So
right.
it's not just the procedural and repetitive. Anything that can be reasoned by a human can be managed by AI. And
Yeah.
now it can even prompt people, ping people, and have conversation. You might say, well, no way it could figure that out because it needs an answer from the client. Well, now AI can send the email to the client or draft the chat message through Slack, integrate with Slack, push it to the decision maker, get the response, have the conversation with the client, and based off of all the information it gleans in that conversation, come back and do the same reasoning that you're doing. And this is not theoretical, it is present technology. Even Claude, that we've been talking about,
Right.
it integrates with Microsoft Office 365, which means it can see and post in Teams. It can integrate with Slack. It can send emails through Google or Outlook to anybody that it needs to communicate with, and then get the information it needs. So it is a strange new world, folks. We can't say
It
it
is.
enough.
No,
You
it's,
cannot
yep.
pretend that the gap between AI and the end result is not narrowing. And you've got to not just live in the gap, you have got to create a new gap. You've got to create new responses to AI. But at the very least, you need to be on the bleeding edge of AI adoption so that you're making the most of the technologies and staying out
Hmm.
ahead of the market. Final thoughts on
Yep.
that, Heather?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that I would say is, what I am seeing and hearing, and maybe it's going to turn a corner, but what I'm seeing and hearing from real practitioners that are implementing AI is that some of it's falling flat, Joe, that they are going all in. And so I think that there's, an unpopular opinion for sure, but I think it's education of what the capabilities are, making sure that you're staying educated on outcomes of implementing these technologies with other firms. Because I have seen and talked to practitioners that have jumped in with both feet, and then the technology that they adopted did not provide the results that they thought they were going to provide, and in some cases wreaked havoc in their firm, especially during, a compressed time like busy season. So while, yes, you need to stay aware and on the bleeding edge and learning as much as you can about this technology, I think there is a lesson of caution here of jumping in too quickly,
Yeah. Well,
and not
there
vetting the.
there's
Yeah.
Heather, and that's the classic adoption stage. So when we first embraced QuickBooks Desktop, because they were running those infomercials and it was basically Quicken on steroids. Just
Mhm.
think about how limited it was. Think about how
Yeah.
buggy it was. Think about how much we had to do because they had overpromised on the commercial. If you can write a check, you can use QuickBooks. And we had to figure it all out. We had to create all these workarounds and patches, do all these things in Excel, and then bring things back in. And we were constantly patching and innovating because we were pioneers.
Yes.
But the mistake I think people make is first they assume that they're not pioneers at this point because I wouldn't say you're pioneers anymore. You're kind of early adopters, and that early adopter stuff comes with messiness. They also don't understand that it's about stacking technologies together, not just there's no panacea, there's no one thing that's going to do everything. You have to stack it just like you did in the cloud to get the whole result that you want. And then this is the biggest mistake, and Susskind deals with this in the book a lot, is to believe that what you saw before is what will be here tomorrow. And where those moved in tranches of years or even decades of development, and he compared it to the microprocessor revolution of the PC and the adoption of cloud technology and systems. He said that the pace of development with artificial intelligence is exponentially greater than what the pace was of cloud, which was greater but not exponentially of desktop technology. So he said, we just can't presume that even what we saw last week is what exists this week. And when you go out and you hear those stories, and Heather's absolutely right, you're still pioneering, those stories are still existent. But I don't want listeners to say, well, I read somebody had a bad experience 6 months ago on this, and so I'm going to wait it out and see where it's at in a couple of years. Every single couple of weeks, it goes through a revolutionary change. It's crazy the pace.
Absolutely. I could not agree more, Joe. There is it's about strategy. It's about strategy and being intentional and staying informed. And so, at Scaling New Heights, we have an entire artificial intelligence track where we're talking about strategy. We're talking about what's possible right now. And again, Joe, in 3 months, 6 months, it could change. But
Right.
at that time, we're going to be showing the latest and greatest and how to actually approach this within your practice. So how do you protect the data? How do you, not put all your eggs in one basket?
Yes.
How can you do batch innovation? How do you do sprints? How do you know when to pivot? When do setting metrics for
And how do you
that?
know how just to experiment? Because,
Exactly.
I use Claude pretty much all throughout the day, and it has 10 updates at least a day.
Hmm.
The where we might have gotten one update a year in QBD and one maybe every week or two, 3 or 4 in QBO. Every day, 10, 15
Hmm. Yeah,
times it'll update. So yeah, it's about constant experimentation and
it is.
retesting. Does it work
Yes,
now? Well, let's check again next week. Now it works.
100%.
Yep. So, um, good. Let's talk about the 2 truths and a lie. Now, in this exercise, folks, if you're new to this, we try to stump each other, and we have some statements here, 2 of which are true, 1 of which is a lie. Heather, you go first. Try to stump me.
Okay. Mine is about chickens. Don't know why, but I just decided that
You're for chickens. All
that
right.
we're going to talk about chickens today. So, thing one is chickens can recognize up to 100 different faces, including human faces. So, think about that for a minute. Thing two is chickens are colorblind and they can only see in shades of black, white, and gray. And thing three is there was a chicken named Mike who lived 18 months after its head was removed.
Okay. So, don't know much about chickens, except they're very tasty. But
Just don't look it in the face. before you kill it to eat it, right? Because then it's going to
Well,
recognize
no, its face is gone by the time I get
if
to it.
that's true.
Yeah, it's usually just already baked or whatever. Yep, on the plate. But all right, so chickens can recognize up to 100 different faces, including human faces. Okay, let's put a pin in that one for a minute. I'd be shocked if chickens are colorblind because I know enough about birds to know that plumage and the color of plumage is a big mating issue. So the roosters are colorful and they're beautiful and they're and they use that to mate. So I would think that all birds see color. I'd be shocked, except penguins. They only see black and white. Get it? There was a. All right.
Dad joke alert.
Okay. So there was a chicken named Mike who lived for 18 months after his head was removed. That's so hard to believe. I know there's this whole idea of a chicken with his head cut off, and it runs around for maybe a minute or two. But it's just so fantastical that I have to think that's the one you're trying to stump me on. So I'm just going to have to go with that. I don't think a chicken can live with that with his head cut off for 18 months. That's the lie.
No, you should have gone with your gut. So chickens can in fact see color. So that was the lie.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did say that, didn't I? Yes, I guessed it and then picked the wrong thing.
You did. Yes. So
okay.
you should have gone with your gut.
I don't know if
so
that was kind of like a half win because I got it, but just the work was right and the math answer was wrong. Yeah.
So I figured that was going to be the lie too.
How did this chicken live 18 months with no head?
Yeah. So Mike was a chicken, and one day there's a whole story. You can Google it, or maybe I'll just drop the link in the listener notes.
Perfect. Yeah, in the listener.
So Mike was a chicken, and his owner decided they wanted to have chicken for dinner. So he went out and he cut off Mike's head, but the way he hit the head, he didn't cut off part of the brain stem and one of his ears.
And the head dangled.
Yeah. And so the brain stem is actually what controlled all of the bodily functions of the chicken. And so the chicken continued to run around with the chicken with its head cut off, which is probably where that comes from. And so the owner felt so bad, that this chicken was still alive that he ended up feeding it with a dropper.
If you feel bad enough, just finish the job.
Well, yes, come on, I don't know. I mean, I guess if you see this chicken, like it would still like peck, like a chicken peck. So it would go through all the motions of the things
ever.
So we kept it alive for 18 months by feeding it with a dropper and giving it water. And so the chicken.
All right. So that's cringeworthy. So I'm going to move on. So so I got the answer and then ended up selecting the wrong one. That was crazy. All right. So I'll give myself a wash on that. All right. So here we go. Artemis just launched yesterday. So I've got some Artemis program facts for you and a lie in here. Thing number one, a Snoopy plush doll and a Shaun the Sheep stuffed animal both flew aboard Artemis at zero gravity indicators. They actually used these to see if the gravity was zero. Were they floating around freely in the cabin or were they sitting on the shelf or the little seat? Thing two, NASA will create a station on the surface of the moon as part of the Artemis program. The lunar station will be supported by a second station that orbits the moon. And number three, the four main engines powering the SLS rocket's core stage were custom designed for the Artemis program under a contract with SpaceX.
Wow. Well, I want to believe that thing one is true, that there was actually a Snoopy plush doll and Shaun the Sheep floating around with the astronauts. That sounds lovely. I probably would have had a stuffed unicorn instead of
or a stuffed cat.
Or a stuffed cat, or both, or maybe a real cat. Can you imagine a real cat floating around?
Maybe Mike the chicken. See how that worked, because then his head would be on top.
Right.
If its
a horse,
on top,
not so much.
Then we're good. If its head's hanging down, then. All right, go ahead. Sorry, I thought we'd left the chicken behind. Keep going.
All right. Then thing two, NASA will create a station on the surface of the moon as part of the Artemis program and will be supported by a second station. So I think that's the lie, because I think that, yes, we put a flag on it, supposedly, for those, I'm giving some credit to those conspiracy theorists out there.
Naysayers, yeah.
Supposedly, we put a flag on in 1969, but uh, the moon doesn't belong to NASA or the U.S. I mean, I could see them doing it, but hopefully in collaboration with other countries. And then the four main engines powering, so SpaceX, I think, did have contracts, but I don't know. I don't know enough about that to know if that's true or not.
We'll take your guess.
So I'm going to have to guess here. I'm going to say that thing two. I'm going to go with my gut. Thing two is the lie.
Well, I'm excited to say, as a sci-fi nerd, that thing two is correct. We are forming a lunar base with an orbiting station to support it. Doesn't
Okay.
mean that I don't think that we've necessarily said we're claiming rights to the moon or forbidding
Okay.
others from creating a similar station or maybe even sharing it internationally. I don't know those, but I do know what that's happening. So this Artemis 2 will circle and survey, and then
Cool.
some Artemis rocket in the future will land again for the first time in over 60 years, or the first time ever, depending on your conspiratorial theories. And then it'll form the lunar base slowly over time. And this is the most exciting part is it's all a stepping stone to get to Mars at some
That's
point
cool.
in the
Yeah.
future. The four main engine rockets are from the space shuttle program.
Oh,
They're
okay.
they're 1980s NASA technology.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
So that
All
was the
right. You're
lie.
gaining on me, Joe. You're gaining on me. I
Yeah.
think
Well,
you
and I
got me
wouldn't be
last week.
doing
You got me
better if
this
I
week.
would
Yeah.
just get the answer right after I've done the work on the previous one with old Mike the chicken. Okay. It is time for our member spotlight of the week. Okay, we have Lamont, one of our coaches, Lamont Nesbitt, joining us. And he's going to talk about one of the members that he coaches. Lamont, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, well, thanks for having me. Always fun to listen to you guys. Always educational. My member spotlight, I'm really excited, is Kareem Espino. I should say Karem. It's Karen with an M, but she's Latino. It's a cool name. She's a cool
It is a
person.
very cool name. Yeah.
It is. And really, I'm excited because I'm going to very quickly highlight like the last year. She has really embraced what I'm going to call mindset before skill set, because she's got the skill set. If you know her at all, like she is CFO level. Let me get all this stuff done. She actually likes what I call the hard stuff. It's probably easy for her. But she likes manufacturing and get the inventory and swapping things. And she is like, yeah, like she's let me in there, where I'm like, you go ahead at. But she embraces it, right? So when she's doing that, she's happy. And now she does all of the bookkeeping, accounting, controller work too. But when we dug in and realized that wasn't really what she liked to do, she was like, okay, I think I'm going to change that. I said, well, are you? And she said, yes. So she's delegating. And so she's got her team doing that work. And what that freed her up to do was have those discussions, those, I don't think they're harder conversations. We actually call them upgraded conversations with the owners. Well, how do you know this is right? Is this even trending in the right place? Where are you trying to get to? And so that has led to an amazing last, I'll say, year for her. She is now, let me summarize a few things that's happened for her in the last year. She's speaking with the New Jersey Manufacturers Association. She was invited to an international thing in Mexico where it's like, hey, we want to bring manufacturers, more of them, to the U.S. And so we want to bring some of them through New Jersey, where she happens to be located. We actually want you to come speak because when they get here, they're going to need books. Their books are going to have to be in order. They're still going to need money. They're going to need a line of credit. They're going to have to get started. And we want them to hit the ground running. So we want them to actually do this with you. Well, that led to her speaking at Stanford University I think it was this week.
That's phenomenal.
Wow.
Right? Where she's doing the same thing. People are now actually trying to partner with her, saying, okay, when we get these things set up, and I want to mention she's trying to make sure she digs in and does what she can. She's Latino in her Latino community. But oh my gosh, don't let that stop you from like talking to her if you know her about doing these things. The panel went great. People are now seeking her out for these things. It is absolutely amazing. And all because she decided, well, here's the work I want to do. And she knew it was impactful. She's had the skill set. And again, she does taxes. She can, but her passion was this CFO work. This passion was getting these financials ready. Her passion was, you got a business and you don't have enough knowledge to get it to the bank to get the help you need. Now, she calls it all financial clarity. And here's what I want to do. I want to bring your business financial clarity. And boy, helping her to get to the financial clarity, honor all in itself. But now that watching her do this and seeing what's going on, she's now on both coasts. All she really wanted to do was help, I think, one or two of her clients, no names, get a little financial clarity, get their way. But they said yes. They saw the difference it could make. But the talk, she's having talks with banks now. It has just been an amazing last year for her. And she's a very fun person to watch or follow, I should say, on LinkedIn. So she's got all these pictures up from Stanford. And I'm just like,
oh, that's fun.
I'd have never got in. So I could have gone just to watch you and it would have been great. So Karim Ospino, killing it.
And that name, as well as that LinkedIn profile, is going to be available in our website and our listening guide. It is so encouraging to hear those kinds of stories, Lamont. Thanks so much for sharing it. All right, we're going to wrap up with Heather's favorite Woodard Report article of the week. What did you pick this week, Heather?
So we did Kara Kennedy, our own Kara Kennedy, who is part of the Woodard Report team, wrote a fantastic article called What Accounting Websites Get Wrong and What Pros Recommend. And she actually collaborated on this article with Amy Jors, who is teaching 2 sessions on marketing at Scaling New Heights, including one on how you can use AI to build a website. So going to be really cool sessions at Scaling New Heights. So what's awesome about this article is that Kara digs into how to maximize the return on investment from your website. So a lot of firms, we've heard for years and years and years, if you don't have a website, you don't have a business card. But that's honestly what most firm owners, especially small to mid-sized firms, think of their website as, is just a business card. And if you don't set it up right and don't personalize it so that folks can get to know you and what your superpowers are and what your, the value that your firm is bringing, and bring value at that moment of landing on your website, you're missing out. You're not actually getting the ROI from that expense and really curating that asset for your firm. So go check it out. She's got some great takeaways. Amy's has partnered with her to offer some great takeaways. And if you want to learn more about how to build a website that's actually going to drive business and give you ROI, at Scaling New Heights, Amy Jors is going to be doing that session on Wednesday, which will be fantastic.
All right. Sounds like a great article. And that also sounds like a wrap. And unless I missed it, you didn't get the word drop in this episode. So
I sure did, Joe.
The word was.
I sure did.
You did? You said box fan?
I sure did.
All right. So the word, folks, was box fan, and I guess I missed it. Where did you get in box fan?
When I was talking about Claude, I said you connect all kinds of apps to Claude, including Box, but I'm not a Box fan.
Oh, or Google, now that was sneaky. I was thinking, what's her beef with Box? I mean, I completely.
No
I was expecting you to actually refer to the object of a box fan. All right. Very good. Very sneaky.
But I have nothing against Box.
All right. So, I'll play next week. You're going to give me a strange word and I'll work it in. All right. Yeah. Well, that's a wrap. Thanks, Lamont, for being with us and sharing Karim's story. We can pronounce it either way. I think she answers to both. Heather, great spending the week with you, or spending the time with you about last week.
Absolutely. See you next time, everyone.